Hi guys, welcome back to the show. Joe Witten, Elyse Comerford. We're talking about adrenal fatigue, exhaustion, iodine, thyroid, rest, recovery, sunshine, sleep,
weight gain.
movement, weight gain. Also, let's talk about that kind of stuff. Elyse, welcome back.
Thank you. Hello.
Hi, Elyse.
Nice to speak to you guys again, as always.
Yeah.
It's been a good week. The podcast has received very good reviews from the listeners, and they wanted you back, and they wanted to hear more about this topic. So thanks for coming back.
There was some people feeling very impatient that they had to wait for part 2.
So, Elyse, where did we leave off last time? We wanted to talk about iodine. Maybe let's kick it off with the iodine first.
That's
What's
what
iodine about?
Okay, is it okay if I just do a little backward step with what I would have spoken about next last week?
Please do.
Because before we even look at iodine, there are some other specific nutrients. So I think we kind of left it off last time with getting into the whole food nourishing diet, lots of fat and protein. We definitely talked about egg yolks because we talked about the Russian custard and the mango salsa.
Which Elyse so nicely put up on her blog for us, her delicious Elyse bars. Oh, well.
No, I didn't put them up as well. I usually make it into the soft serve, but I have done it into ice cream as well.
So it's the Russian custard mango version. So have a look on it. We'll put the link down.
Elyse, you're coming next Wednesday to visit me, right?
Yeah. I am, and I'll make that for you if you make Chaga stock for me.
Wow.
I saw that on your Instagram.
Sounds like a good day.
Yeah. I have to just refrigerate some because I've just boiled this. I don't know how long you can keep boiling. I know that you can for like days. You can keep extracting chaga out of chaga chunks, but I don't know. But if I can do that for a week, so I might have to find some chunks for you and make it. Chaga is a great. That actually would be very helpful for adrenal fatigue. Chaga, definitely. I would imagine. Yeah.
Maybe you should explain what it is.
Chaga is a woody mushroom that looks like a growth on a tree. Like it grows in North America and parts of Europe and Russia. That's what I know. I don't know where else it grows. Probably more places. I don't think it's native to Australia, but it's a kind of mushroom that's considered an adaptogen, and it's a very unique and peculiar quality that a herb can have. Most herbs are either like if you're down, they pull you up, or other herbs, if you're up, they bring you down. So let's talk about, say, immune system. So some people have a hyperactive immune system, so they need something to bring the immune system down, so it's not as, it's not attacking them as powerfully if they have, say, an autoimmune disease. At least feel free to correct me. And then there's immune systems that are hypoactive. They're not as active as they should be. So a human being could be prone to sickness more easily because the immune system is down. Usually you have to take a herb if you're down or another herb if you're up in terms of the immune system. But Chaga has this ability to modulate the immune system. So it seems to have an intelligent pathway. It brings you to a healthy baseline regardless if you're up or down, which is incredibly impressive for something to function in that way. So people drink it for all sorts of health benefits: energy, clarity, immune system, sleep, rest, recovery, all sorts of stuff.
Inflammation.
What else, Elyse? Tell me more.
Balances blood sugar. It contains a lot of nutrients. It's very nutrient density, vitamins, vitamin D. So vitamin D in mushrooms is so much better quality that you'll ever get from a synthetic vitamin D supplement, which I would never, ever recommend anyone take a synthetic vitamin D supplement. So then it's got other trace elements like copper, selenium, it's got zinc and...
What is it I've heard about putting mushrooms in the sunshine to absorb vitamin D or something before you eat them? Have you heard of that?
Yeah, so if you go, well, mushrooms really, don't they grow in the sunshine? I think they should get lots of sunshine, and probably that as well. If you dry them or put them out in the sun before, they're also going to absorb more. So mushrooms can be really, really high in vitamin D.
And if you have crystals, full moon. It's a full moon yesterday.
And
they
the
can-
moon
they
was
can,
amazing last night. Sorry.
The moon, yes, I saw the moon too last night. It looked quite orange.
Beautiful.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So there you go, guys. Chaga mushroom. You can look for a reputable source for wild harvested chaga. I don't think they're at that point now where they can sort of grow it over what do you call wood chips and sawdust and stuff, because it's kind of a strange kind of mushroom. Other mushrooms like reishi which have similar functions, can be grown commercially, but chaga, I don't think it's something you can grow unless it's wild. So, but make sure it is a wild harvested chaga mushroom that you can get from a good source, and just boil it and drink it. Some people do a double extraction with alcohol as well, so it has different benefits when you do an alcohol extraction in the chaga. So
I think the Superfeast are pretty easy to access. Have you heard of Superfeast?
Heard of Superfeast?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, theirs is wild grown.
Yeah.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Pretty sure.
Superfeast.
Yeah, and if you go to a bulk food store, they often have them there in bulk, which makes it a lot cheaper than buying them in the little containers and packets.
I've never even seen one.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so
this is the Chaga podcast by the sounds of it.
We're good at rabbit trails.
I love chaga. It's very nice. So I think last week I was going to just mention some of the specific nutrients we can focus on. So if you're doing the whole food nourishing diet, you've taken those steps, and now you want to just hone in on some key nutrients, and things like A, D, E, and K. So they're all our fat-soluble vitamins, and also the B vitamins, vitamin C, magnesium. So you can start honing in on those, first of all, through food, is where I'd always be looking to get them from. And then there's things like our omega fats, acetyl L-carnitine, CoQ10. So I, first of all, as I said, I'd be really trying to get that from food. So
do you want to give us a list of foods? Or
so animal fats. So animal fats, we're pretty much going to get all of that. And just eating a good variety of fruit and veg. So I forget the name of the doctor you had on here, and he was talking about trying to get those 40 different types.
Dr. Jason Horolak, yeah.
Yeah, so getting that good wide variety of fruit and veg once they're tolerated. So if you are on early stage of gaps, and it's once everything's tolerated. Cod liver oil and fish oil, so they're fantastic sources of your omegas, of A and D, grass-fed butter, vitamin K. Organ meats, you're going to get your B vitamins. You're also going to get some trace elements. You're going to get vitamin A. It's the most potent source of vitamin A. Your egg yolks, you're going to get some zinc, choline, biotin, plus some B vitamins as well, some calcium, plenty of salt. So it's really important to get your sodium levels up to support your adrenals. And things like avocados, red and white meat, fish, fermented foods, and using magnesium like Epsom salts, mag spray.
All the time, all this stuff. Like I have to eat all this all the time.
Well,
it's overwhelmed.
Giving you a variety, so you don't get bored.
So the step before was whole food nourishing diet, plenty of fat and protein, fresh fruit and veg. If you're doing that and you're going, okay, I'm doing that, I'm getting there, but still not quite there, then start looking at your cod liver oil, your fish oil, your organ meats, your egg yolks. That's when you start getting in the really dense stuff, your meat and veg, your fermented foods. So, it's just that's really covering everything. So I talked a bit, and mentioned the names of the vitamins and minerals we need. But if you're having a cod liver oil supplement, organ meats and egg yolks, and eating animal fats, you're pretty much covering it. Yeah, so it's really about that dense nutrition you can get from food.
So a good idea probably, because if you take that list and you try to imagine how that would look like in a day, it's completely something you can't achieve. You can't eat all the stuff probably in one day. So spread it over a period of a week or two to have like a variety of these things. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, well, and it really depends for each person where they're at. And I guess that's what we talked about in the last podcast as well. If trying to eat organ meat every day, because I said how good it is, makes you really stressed with trying to fit it in, and when am I going to have it? That's really defeating.
And I don't like it, and I just can't eat that much of it.
Yeah. So that's really defeating the purpose of starting to stress you out. But this kind of thing, like eating some animal fats, wide variety of fruit and veg, and having a cod liver oil supplement, really they're things that you could do every day.
Another thing that you've mentioned to me before, when you're working on getting more egg yolks into your diet, you'll get to the stage where, your body's wanting them. And then you were saying that as you heal, you'll just naturally not want as many. Is that right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, your body starts to tell you. So you can even really focus on one thing at a time. So the animal fats and the wide variety of fruit and veg, they're our basics. We're always going to have those in. Yeah. But you might go, okay, I've got that in right now. I'm just going to focus on cod liver oil. So that's in my mind. That's the only thing I've got to add in.
Add one thing at a time.
Cod liver oil every day, which you can get in a liquid or in capsules.
What's a good brand?
So Rosita's, which I stock on microbiomestore.com, maybe.au as well.
It's all right. We'll find the link.
So Rosita's, because I really like the way they catch and process. It's really traditional way of doing it, and they do small batch and the kind of thing we like. It's sustainable, that kind of thing. And it preserves the A and D, which is what we're really wanting to get out of it. So you could just start with that, just adding that in and knowing that you're adding in something really nutrient dense. And cod liver oil is not something you do forever.
How much did you say? Did you say how much to take?
So you would take 5 mils. So that's an adult dosage, is 5 mil a day. And that's, different for everyone in terms of where they're at. If you're someone on a healing journey and you're really sensitive, so you've got a lot of health issues you're dealing with, you may start at 1 mil a day and slowly increase it.
Elyse, how, like you said, your body tells you like it doesn't need something anymore.
Yeah.
This is something I've been thinking about. Like, I'm all for nutritional density and having food, give you a lot of nourishment. But is there a tipping point after which, like, it's just a bit too much stuff for the body?
Well, it's not at the tipping point. There's not like we could identify a tipping point, but say, for example, with cod liver oil, we'd only ever do it for 3 to 6 months anyway. And that's also very individual. It does depend on the person. It could be longer, but it's not something you have to do for a long time, because we can just use food once we restore that nutrition. When we're talking gaps, it is all very high dense nutrition in the start. It is ideal to get organ meats and egg yolks and all that stuff in every day, and the fats and the ferments, and it's all very nutrient dense. And it really comes to the point where it really is listening to your body. So I've definitely got to the point where I went pretty much vegetarian for a month or so, because I had been, high protein and lots of really nutrient dense stuff for such a long period of time, that I got to the point where I'm like, I'm just not really, I'm not feeling like meat. I'm not feeling like eating that. I'm not feeling like so much fat. And then I really wanted lots of fresh vegetables. So I was just eating like capsicums like they're an apple, cucumber every day, and lots of salads. So I was really wanting a lot of raw, and I was doing cooked as well, and still eating things like eggs. And then I just kind of got to the point after a month, and I was probably eating meat once a week. And then I got to the point after a month where I started craving liver. So yeah, it really is about, you do get to a point where you just listen to your body, and you'll go through waves. And I go through
sometimes
waves.
Like, as it sounds like, the body requires a bit of a break from nutrition.
Well, it's not a break from nutrition, because you're still getting a lot of nutrition from your lots of fresh veggies.
Well, comparatively, if you were to sort of really graph what's in liver, tons of vegetables, So comparatively, we're saying maybe there's less nutrition, pound for pound.
So maybe a break from all the really rich foods and the ones for a little while. Sometimes.
Yeah, that's exactly it. The cleansing. So it's the body starts going, okay, we've done lots of healing and starting to replace lots
Building.
of the cell structures and all that rebuilding and retracing, and then the body starts craving some cleansing.
And now let's get some more detox out. Yeah. So, interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's all about going through different phases of healing where you're at. So for people who are in early stages of gaps and still healing, what we just said is completely irrelevant to them, because they may start to crave fresh food, but if you are really in that healing stage and not tolerating much, you do really need to stick with the healing. And that's where I guess a practitioner comes in handy to know what's what in terms of, listening to your body. But yeah, when you're well into the healing, when you've kind of got to that point where you're not having the digestive symptoms anymore and a lot of healing's happened, then you're really open to listening to where your body's at.
Well, I just was talking to my friend today, and she said, I'm just craving Russian custard, and I feel like 6 egg yolks might be too many, but I just want it. And I'm like, no.
That's not too many.
It's not too many. If your body's saying, give me those egg yolks, then just keep having them until it says no more. Interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So once we've kind of been focusing on the food, and then if you're still needing adrenal support, that's when I'd look at adaptogenic herbs and mushrooms and actually supplementing with B vitamins or vitamin C, magnesium, and then testing. So there is testing that can be done to see where your stress hormones and sex hormones are at. It's called the Dutch profile. So it's only once kind of addressing everything else that we'd actually start looking at that stuff. Not to say that you can't use adaptogenic herbs right from the start. You absolutely can. They're just not going to fix the problem. So if you're sitting there going, well, I'm really stressed and I've definitely got adrenal issues, what can I take?
Yeah.
It's like you're really going to waste your time there.
You've really got to start with the food.
Yeah, you've really got to, you could start taking something, but at the same time start with where you can reduce stress in your life. Yeah. Where you can slow down and get out in nature and make time for that, and start addressing the food as well.
With the adaptogenic herbs, is that like a herbal supplement, like from a naturopath, or tea? Yeah. So you can do either. You can do teas. You can go to a naturopath or a herbal dispensary and just ask them, tell them how you're feeling, and they can just make you something up. It's great if you have access to a herbal dispensary. We've got a really good one here in Harlem. So you can get something made up. Yeah. Which I take something most of the time. I get, just depending how I'm feeling, I get ones that really support the liver, ones that really support the adrenals, and every month or so take some herbs. Yeah, and I guess, like you say, that's where it's good to have a practitioner on board to help you figure out what you need to focus on at that time.
Yeah, and as I said, I talk about it like in an order, so you slowing down and reducing your emotional stress and work stress and all that kind of stuff, working out your mindset, how resilient you are, and then looking at diet, and then really nutrient dense foods, and then the supplements and herbs. But you don't necessarily have to do it in that order, but just remind yourself that that's the list of priorities. If you're just supplementing and taking a lot of herbs and rushing around all the time, you're really not going to get anywhere with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And for some people it's the rest that's the main thing. I think for me, I guess I've been working on the food side of things for a long time. And when I crash and burn is when I put too much on my plate and I get exhausted. So for me, it's at the moment, it's just keeping an eye on getting enough sleep at night and all of that kind of thing.
When it comes to that priority list, sleep is definitely number one on there. So sleep is definitely number one on that priority list.
And I have been working on the iodine as well. So is this a good time to talk about the iodine then?
Yeah. So in there with that supplementing, something that I look at with a lot of my clients is iodine. So iodine's a really interesting one, because when we start talking about iodine, a lot of people can get a bit worried of, I've heard different things about iodine, and if there's anyone sitting there with a thyroid issue, hyper or hypothyroid, well, I've heard that iodine really isn't good for the thyroid, that it can shut down the thyroid. So the really interesting thing about iodine is that it's more important than we realise for a lot more than the thyroid. So when you hear iodine, you usually would relate it to the thyroid. So it's really important for many other functions in the body. So it's needed in small amounts by every single cell in our body. So every single cell requires iodine. So it's important for production of hormones, for the function of our immune system. It's antibacterial, antifungal, antiviral, and even reported to have anti-cancer properties as well. So, and there's quite a bit of research on that. So with the whole thing about iodine and the thyroid, so there was a study done back in 1948. There was a study done on rats, and then another one following in 1969, which was done on humans. And what happened in those studies, it was they found that the iodine shuts down the function of the thyroid. So these are the only two studies that found that, and no one ever looked to see if what they found in this research was verifiable until some doctors came along who are known now as the iodine doctors, like Dr. David Brownstein, and there's a few others, and they found that what was found in those studies was not verifiable and wasn't true. So it's called the Wolff-Chaikoff assumption. And it kind of rings a bit like the whole cholesterol hypothesis. It's like one study changes, it can change everything. And so this Wolff-Chaikoff assumption, as it's called, that the iodine shuts down the thyroid, is founded to not be true. And there's a lot of science to back this, but unfortunately, that one study, because
it's the one everyone knows.
And it's because the researchers involved in that study, they had positions in certain universities. The main researcher, he was very loud about the whole message from it, and so it's become common knowledge that's not true. Yeah. So the iodine doctors have been working over 30 years with thousands of patients using iodine in high doses and seeing absolutely incredible results, and definitely not the hypothyroidism that this study told them they should be seeing. So according to this study, everyone they're working with, these thousands of people, should all be hypothyroid, and it's just not happening. It just doesn't happen. And so iodine therapy is used to treat hypothyroidism. And lots of different thyroid issues. So I'm happy to share a bit of that research. For some people, it's just like any message, like the low-fat thing. When you've been hearing it for a long time, it's hard to kind of switch your brain with it and go, this is okay. But there is a lot of science there. This isn't just a theory. It's backed by lots of hard evidence.
Yeah. It is a theory. It's not a hypothesis. That's like, it's actually... Right?
What's that? Sorry?
It is a theory. What's that, me or what's that, Dylan?
That's Dylan.
Hey, Dylan, what do you think about iodine, man?
I can't hear you. What do you think about iodine? Say hi to John Foo.
Hi, Dylan. Hello, darling.
What do you think about iodine? Do you take iodine?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, you're so adorable.
Yes.
Sorry, what was your question, Foo?
Yeah. I was saying, like it is like this thing about theory. It's not a hypothesis, right? Like it's not. Yeah, right. So you're saying that most of the science is now pointing as a working theory that iodine is healthy for the thyroid. And
definitely. And there is a lot of science to show that. So basically what those doctors found back in 1948, 1969, it's not replicable. Like that's just not what we see. And there's some specific ways of using iodine and implementing the protocol to make sure that the body does use the iodine properly. So the only way that we can have thyroid issues when using iodine actually has nothing to do with iodine, but has to do with selenium. So if selenium is deficient, then we can see thyroid issues. So some of the conditions...
My hand gets really hot.
Okay, great. Some of the symptoms of iodine deficiency are fatigue, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, depression, hair loss, hoarseness, so voice hoarseness, dry skin, constipation, cold intolerance, so, cold hands and feet, not being able to deal with the cold very well, difficulties with concentration, muscle cramps, menstrual problems, poor memory, inability to concentrate, weight gain, nervousness, infertility, irritability, bone thinning, cretinism, mental impairment, breast pain, fibrocystic breast, menstrual pain, adrenal issues and ovarian cysts, and that is just some of them. So
if brain fog is your symptom, then don't worry about the other stuff.
That's right. So anyone can pretty much go, well, I've got some of those symptoms. Iodine is just such an interesting one because of that, and just when you do get that understanding of how important it is for the function of every cell in our body and how deficient we are in it. So,
All right. So what? I just grab a bottle of iodine and start drinking it?
Well, when it comes to the supplementing of it, that's not something I generally just like to go, hey.
Okay, iodized salt. Should I get iodized salt? Is that?
No, you definitely shouldn't get iodized salt, because the form of iodine in the iodized salt is only the one, so it's potassium iodide, and that will only help your thyroid, and that's it, nothing else. So and the current iodine recommendations are, I think it's 150 microgram a day, and that is just enough iodine to prevent goiter. And so when you think about that, it's only supplying the thyroid with enough iodine to prevent goiter, yet every cell in our body needs iodine. So our current recommendations are really poor. So the amount in the salt is low anyway, and then iodine starts dissipating when exposed to oxygen. So by the time your iodine salt gets into your cupboard and then sits there, we don't even know that you're getting any iodine.
Yeah.
Anyway, and so the salt that's iodized is usually highly processed salt as well. So, you're not getting much nutrition from that. So Dr. David Brownstein is someone I've mentioned a few times already, and he has a book called Iodine.
Can I eat my leg?
Yeah. So Iodine, Why You Need It and Why You Can't Live Without It. And that's a really good read. It's quite a scientific one. So a bit like reading the GAPS book, where you, it's not a sit down and enjoy it with a cup of Chaga at night. But there is another book that I really love, and it's called The Iodine Crisis. And that is a fantastic one because it's broken up with testimonials. And although, testimonials are anecdotal, but they're also important. It's anecdotal evidence that we start basing hypothesis and research on anyway. But it is a really good read like that. It's got some of the facts and then some testimonials, and then some more of the facts, and then some more testimonials. So it makes it a really good and interesting read. And so I think that is one that everyone would benefit from reading and understanding what's going on with iodine. And a big factor in this iodine crisis and why we are so deficient in it, so like I said, the RDI for one, is way too low. And something really interesting, when I started researching iodine in Australia, because when everything we read about iodine in these iodine books, it all talks about how bread is fortified with iodine, but in Australia it's not. So I think in America it still is, but it's actually not in Australia. So bread is okay, hang on, let me take a bit of backward step. In America, bread is fortified with bromine, So I'm going to start talking about bromine now. Sorry if I've jumped and confusing people. But bromine is another halide. So iodine is one of the halides. Bromine is another one, but it's toxic. So in America, Brett, and if you do go and read the iodine books, you'll read a lot about the issue with bromine and how bromine pushes our iodine levels down. So we're not getting enough iodine. RDI is low, and availability of iodine in soil is low. It's low in our diet, so we're not getting enough. And then to throw it on top of that, in America, bread is brominated. It has brominated flour in it.
So why do they do that?
Oh, it's got something to do with preserving, like,
of course.
Yeah. So it used to be done with iodine, but then they said, oh no, iodine is going to shut down people's thyroid, so now we'll do it with bromine. And bromine, is toxic and actually pulls down the iodine levels. So in Australia, though, the flours aren't brominated anymore. They do have iodine back in them, but again, not the right form and not nowhere near enough. And so, but bromine is also in fire retardants, lots of cleaning products, lots of makeups, and lots of different things there's bromine in. So bromine is, some are saying it's like the chemical equivalent of global warming, how much bromine we have in our environment and how much bromine we're exposed to. And so the bromine is pushing out our iodine. So it's like they compete. So bromine takes up these iodine receptors, and that means any iodine we're taking in, we're just weighing it out because our iodine receptors are attached to bromine. So that's, it's this double-ended sword that we're not getting enough iodine. There's not a recognition for the need of it. Plus, we're exposed to too much bromine, which pushes our iodine levels down. And bromine in some countries is actually banned. Like, we do know that bromine is toxic. Couples with highest amount of brominated fire retardants in their bloodstreams have been reported to have the lowest infertility rates, lowest fertility rates. So there's lots of issues with this bromine toxicity. And then when I was looking into Australia and seeing, because I didn't think that our flours were brominated anymore, so that was removed. Iodine was added instead, but it is just the iodized salt. So I was having a look, and I saw that in the 1950s in Tasmania there was an issue in children with low iodine, and so they started actually giving iodine tablets to them at school, and it was 10 milligrams of iodine. So that's actually 1,000 times the current daily recommended dose. And that was given for 16 years, and there was a reduction in goiters. And so for 16 years they were safely handing them out to school children, 1,000 times our current daily recommended dose of iodine with benefit shown from it. So the historical use of iodine, it's when you start the book that I've recommended goes right into it. When you look at the historical use of iodine and all the different things it's been used for, it's really crazy to think a couple of studies and all of a sudden we've turned our back on something that's had so much benefit for so long. So it's been found to help ADD, ADHD, atherosclerosis, which is hardening of the arteries that can lead to heart disease, breast diseases, so particularly fibrocystic breast, even breast cancers, excess mucus production, fatigue, goiter, hemorrhoids, headaches, migraine headaches, hypertension, which is high blood pressure, infections, keloids, liver diseases, ovarian diseases, prostate disorder, thyroid disorders, vaginal infections. So there's lots of things that again is just such a small list of what iodine's been shown to help. I'm just talking and talking and talking here.
That's all right. No, if we have a question, we'll interrupt. Keep going.
A good level of iodine is the ability to continue talking for a while.
Yes, you think really clearly with a lot of clarity. I was actually recording a webinar for a series I'm doing called the Gap Session. So I was doing that yesterday. And I hadn't taken my iodine that morning, and there was a couple of times I was like, I couldn't remember a couple of words, and I'm like, and then afterwards I was like, I didn't take my iodine this morning, that must be why. So a really interesting story, which is in Iodine Crisis, is that there's a town in China that has been known for over 500 years to be, excuse me using this terminology, but this is what was in the book, is the town of idiots. Oh. So some physicians worked out that iodine... Mama. Yes, darling. Idiot. I know, Dylan.
Oh, it's so cute.
It's not a nice word. I know. That's right. So I got told. So some physicians worked out...
It's not nice to say idiot because then it's like another very nice word to say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So some physicians worked out that iodine deficiency was the reason, and so they started actually adding iodine to their water supply. And so 12 months after this project started, infant mortality dropped by half. Sheep production increased 40%.
What production? Sheep production?
Sheep, yeah. So the animals. So we're actually more fertile, and the mortality rate was dropping for them too. And later measurements showed that the average 5-year-old's height had increased by 4 inches. What? And the average intelligence of children born after this irrigation project started increased 16 IQ points. That's and then, amazing. Stillborn animals and miscarriages were reduced by 50% as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty incredible what iodine can do and how important it is.
So, what's a good brand of iodine?
So Lugel's iodine is the one we want to use, and the protocol we follow is the Dr. Brownstein's iodine protocol. There's a lot of things that go along with it, so I don't recommend anyone just go out and go, okay, Elyse said iodine's really important, so I'm just going to go buy a bottle of Lugel's and start. I really don't recommend you do that because it does need to be done properly. And with a practitioner that knows about iodine preferably. So I have created a program to do the iodine protocol where I have a video explaining.
Cover me with 2 hands.
Okay. A video explaining all of this and how to use iodine, and then some support with it as well. Because iodine supplementing isn't something that I like to just go, hey, here, this is how you do it, and off you go. I like to support people with that because there's signs that you're increasing too quickly with your iodine. You need to pull back, and there can be lots of detox symptoms from it as well, and ways to manage that. So I really like to work with people on that one. So I created that program to make it a more cost-effective way for people to be able to just come and implement that iodine protocol, but with the support they need to do it.
Do you want to mention how selenium works with iodine?
Okay, so selenium is a cofactor that's very important for the function of the thyroid. So we need selenium for the thyroid to function, and it's got to do with how the thyroid hormones are converted. And so deficiency of selenium can lead to autoimmune thyroid conditions. So selenium is absolutely essential. And selenium also is important for other functions of the body. So it's another one that we could go right into as to how deficient we are in it and how important it is.
Have I told the story about selenium before? About my doctor?
No.
The blood test maybe 3-4 years ago or something. And I've been eating lots of Brazil nuts because I was reading all the good stuff about selenium. I'm like, oh, good, I'll just eat some Brazil nuts and stuff. And I went to the doctor. She's like, oh, yeah, everything looks fine. But, man, your selenium looks like it's too high. I said, because, yeah, it's way above the limit of what the report says. I said, what does it mean? She goes, I don't know. She had no idea what elevated selenium really meant. She was just worried just because the paper said she should be worried. That's funny. Anyway.
Yeah, but with selenium, you can actually become toxic with selenium. Yeah. So yeah, it isn't something. But I'm sure your selenium.
It's just like I'd had some Brazil nuts for the blood test. The day before or something. it's not like chronically elevated. It was just a point in time.
Yeah.
Just a bit too many Brazil nuts, and so it's funny. Yeah, but so that's a good source of selenium. Yeah.
Yeah, Brazil nuts are, but something I've actually found. Where were the Brazil nuts from that you were eating when you were getting that?
Oh God! I always assumed they came from Brazil, at least, otherwise it's called something else.
But when I remember you saying that Brazil nuts in Australia, what I mean is, how
It's so
far
hard
they
to find
traveled
fresh.
and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you saying that they just don't taste anything like the ones you've eaten.
Well, no, I didn't. That's not what I said. I said I've always struggled finding a batch that isn't rancid. So like I would buy Brazil nuts and I'll eat one or two just to make sure that it wasn't a fluke, and I have to spit them out because I can taste rancid nuts very easy, and rancid nuts are really bad for you. You just shouldn't be eating a rancid nut. So, so I'll go through the bag and. I'll probably lose something like 20 to 30% of the bag because I'm trying to detect which ones are healthy and good for me and which ones have oxidized. And so that's been my experience. I've never had a 100% bag of Brazil nuts.
Yeah, so that's that's my issue with Brazil nuts, and I'm just so uncertain about how much selenium's left in them, where they're grown, whether the...
I'll tell you what, my blood results showed a lot. My blood...
So wherever you source those ones, maybe they were good ones. But I've had clients start iodine protocol whilst using Brazil nuts to get their selenium, 6 to 8 Brazil nuts a day to get the required amount of selenium, and seeing the signs that they're not getting enough selenium. And so, and then we start a supplement, which should be the same dose, because 6 to 8 Brazil nuts is 200 micrograms of selenium. And that will be the dose I would get them on from a supplement. And then I start to see positive changes that they are on the selenium. So I've just been a bit wary, although I would always usually prefer to get nutrients from food.
Is Dylan coughing in the microphone? Is he actually choking on the microphone?
He wants to be involved.
Yeah,
is he all right? Let's deal with Dylan's coughing.
No, he's fine. Have a little cough. Clear in the throat.
But I think whole food sources are definitely best, but we want the results as well. So
so that's just something I'm
wondering with the iodine information. You said you have a program for iodine. Does that also include details on selenium, or is it just purely about iodine?
No, it's all the things that you should be taking alongside. So it's the whole protocol of restoring your iodine, everything you need to take along with it, how to do it, what signs and symptoms you may see, what to do if you do. So it's basically got all the information there so you can confidently and safely restore your iodine levels. Also with support. So there's a Facebook group with some support there. I don't like to give out any kind of information with supplementing iodine and doing that protocol without offering the support along with it as well. I think that's really important.
What's that, Dylan?
He's just got cold feet.
Oh, here in far off Queensland, it's sunny.
Awesome. Dylan, you're coming to visit me next week, man. It's going to be warm, hopefully. We'll take you out for a bushwalk, light a fire together, get those hands and feet warm. What do you think?
You want to go visit Foo next week? Yep. Be your friend.
Beautiful.
Who's your girlfriend?
I've got 2 of them. You can choose.
Who's your girlfriend?
Can't remember.
Can't remember. Oh, thanks. You're going to come visit me in December.
Yeah, that was at Gaps Tree.
It's a long time ago, Mum.
How old is he now?
He is. How old are you, Dylan?
4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4.
4, that's good.
So if you got that?
Yeah, we got it.
I think he said 4. I'm not 100% sure. If he had repeated it one more time, I would be, but no, that's great. All right, so we've covered iodine, do you think we've covered it sufficiently? I guess this is a good starting point for people, because obviously this is one of those things that you can't just learn everything from a single podcast. There's trial, there's error, there's things that you're going to learn about your body's individual response to it. You're going to need more information as you go on this journey, the type of support that Elyse is talking about in her program. But is there anything in terms of, let's say, giving a human being out there listening to this podcast a bit more of a reason to consider iodine? Would they be able, for instance, to test for iodine levels in the blood?
Yeah, definitely. So iodine testing is something that I offer to the people in the group as well. I'm happy to do their testing and give them their results as a part of that iodine program. So the way we do testing is there's a pre and post loading urine test, and that is the best way to test iodine levels. And what we usually do is start supplementing for a couple of months first. So just sticking with a fairly low dose in terms of, high dose in terms of the RDI, but low dose in terms of the dosage we would normally get to in an iodine protocol for a couple of months, and then testing. And the reason for that is because those iodine receptors can be a little bit dried and shriveled up. And so if you imagine like a dried up sponge, when you first try to run water on it, it won't absorb it. It'll just run straight off. So if you do your iodine loading test where you take a dose of iodine and then we're measuring in the urine how much you excrete, the more you excrete, the higher iodine levels are. So if you don't need iodine, your body will just expel it in your urine.
Right.
So the iodine testing is taking a dose of iodine, then collecting your urine for 24 hours, and then the test is measuring how much iodine comes out in your urine. And so then we're able to see, and you're given a percentage. So if 96% comes out in your urine, then you're not deficient in iodine. If 70% comes out, then you are deficient. If your 40% comes out, then you're really deficient. So we can get a false negative if we just test straight away. If your receptors aren't properly absorbing iodine, you could excrete 98%.
Very useful.
Gotcha. Then we'd be thinking that iodine levels are okay. So that's the kind of testing that we can do. So lots of people do like doing that. They like to see that there is a deficiency and then monitor it. So that's something that can be done as well.
One thing that you haven't talked about is salt water, and isn't that quite important to start with before you begin iodine protocol?
Yeah, definitely. So the selenium and the salt water are both something that started before you even start on the iodine, and that's to get your sodium levels back up and also to get your selenium levels back up. So, and they're both important for the way that the thyroid functions, and the sodium's important for the way.
I don't hear what she's saying.
Okay. The sodium's important for the way that your cells uptake the iodine.
Right.
So salt water is how do you make it?
So salt water is a mixture. I can give you guys a link, and then we can put that there as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Read, so they don't have to remember this.
Yeah.
But it's basically just getting a jar with a plastic lid. I generally fill it about a quarter of the way with salt, and then the rest with good quality filtered water. And then you just shake it and leave it overnight. And then the next morning you have a look at it, and you want to see that there's still salt crystals left in the bottom that haven't dissolved.
Supersaturate, basically.
So you're saturating it, which means that no more salt can be suspended in the water. And so you just want to make sure there's salt left in the bottom.
And it's important what kind of salt you use too.
Yeah, definitely. So using good quality sea salt. I like to use Murray River pink salt because it's also sustainable.
And that has plenty of so it has iodine in it as well.
The salt, no, it's not iodized. No,
it's not. Okay, so that doesn't matter.
Does salt usually have iodine naturally in it?
Well, the sea salt does.
Yeah, not a very high amount.
It always falls out when I move it.
No one wants to put you in to listen to you guys. So not very high amounts.
Now you can let go of it. You can let go.
What else have we forgotten to talk about? Is there anything else that we haven't covered for this podcast?
Oh, I have a couple of questions.
Let's go for it.
Okay. Someone wanted to know what's the connection between the adrenals and weight gain around the tummy.
Okay. So when our stress hormones are pumping.
Asking for a friend. No, just kidding.
Joe wants to know. Everyone wants to know.
It is actually someone else who asked, but I want to know as well. Go ahead.
Yeah. I did see that see that question in the group.
Yeah.
So you're off the hook there, Joe.
Thanks.
So when we've got cortisol pumping around the body, so, and as we talked about in the session last week, that when we've got lots of stress, then we've got high stress hormones like cortisol. So that actually causes weight gain in a few ways.
When you're moving like that, they're moving fast and it can't.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to get there. So stress can cause weight gain in a few ways. And the cortisol actually makes you hungry. So that's a really interesting one. That when that stress is pumping around, cortisol can actually make you eat more. And one of the really, cortisol is really nasty in this way. It actually increases the satiety. That's okay. The satiety that you feel, like the dopamine hit that you get from eating food. So when you've got cortisol pumping around your body, and then you satisfy the hunger and eat something, the resulting dopamine hit, the pleasure you get from that,
right? So that's why
actually is increased.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I feel like cortisol is really evil. That it's actually making you.
So it makes you hungry and it makes you love food more. Is that what you're saying?
So it's when you eat and you get your dopamine hit.
Yeah, I know that very well. I can tell you, I can write poetry about that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it actually increases that satisfaction feeling. So it's like there's the satisfaction you get from food anyway, up your cortisol levels, and then that satisfaction from eating will be greater.
So like the Rolling Stones had really low cortisol levels because they can't get no satisfaction.
Oh my God.
That's a good one.
Tell your dad, bro.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
Come on, man. Give me some credit. That was a off-the-cuff kind of joke.
It was good.
That was good.
But I would imagine rock star lifestyle would have a lot of cortisol, I'm really amazed that Mick Jagger had no satisfaction. He would have so much dopamine. All right, cool. Well, let's see. So that makes you put on weight because you're overeating. It creates like a vicious cycle in you. Like one is the hunger to eat, the other one is a higher food reward, which means
that's it. That's the term we needed, food reward.
Okay.
So then the cortisol levels also make your tissues less sensitive to insulin, and so that means that you end up with more glucose pumping around as well, and glucose acts like that. Locks fat into our cells, and so will insulin. And we do know that people taking insulin have issues with weight gain. And so our insulin levels are going to be higher when we are stressed.
Weight gain, you say? But Dylan's like analyzing this conversation. I'm just looking forward how this kid's gonna grow up. Like what conversation we're gonna have with him when he's 17
Be
years.
a clever kid.
It's gonna be amazing. But
I've been on podcast since I was 4.
Yeah, that's right. He's the famous Dylan from A Quirky Journey. But I'm just wondering, with cortisol, like a lot of people would sort of say, okay, well, my glucose tolerance has gone down because my cortisol increased. So if I can't tolerate glucose as much, I may as well go on a super low carb diet, and that in itself increases cortisol, doesn't it?
Yeah, it can do. It can be It can be a stress on your adrenals going on a super low carb diet just in one hit.
Yeah.
So that, for people with adrenal fatigue, just immediately going low carb, I do not recommend, because I've seen.
Now that's interesting, because when I started really struggling with the adrenal fatigue, I felt like my body wanted the carbs.
Yeah.
And I wondered if that was something that happens and then you get the weight gain.
Well, if you have glucose sensitivity issues where your circulating glucose is higher, means your insulin's going up. It's like it's elevating more, then you will crave more carbs, right? Like I imagine that would be just normal to crave more carbs, not because your body needed them, but because you have more insulin.
Yeah, and well, it can be both too. So if your adrenals are struggling, you're going to crave more carbs when you go low carb, and you, as you said, you do that anyway. But for someone with adrenal fatigue, it's because their blood sugars are swinging all over the place and going too low and stressing out the adrenals. So, and that's where I guess if you're going to any extremes with diet, working with a nutritionist or dietitian that supports the steps you're taking is a good idea to know how to manage these things.
What's the effect of fasting on the adrenals?
So again, that can cause stress on the adrenals if you're in a state of fatigue. So it's, again, something I would recommend working with a practitioner on to know whether or not that's right for you. And my recommendations with fasting is always listening to your body and following the when principle. So eating when hunger ensues naturally. So not starving yourself. So if you try doing a fast, it should be because I feel like my body can fast right now. And then when you start fasting, I'm feeling okay with this fast. And then, but if you start to get really hungry and your blood sugars drop, then you need to eat. So that's the way I still fast is I'll always listen to my body, even if I've planned I want to do it, 2-day fast next week. If I start and my body is not feeling up to it, I don't keep going.
I highly recommend a broth fast.
Broth fasts are great.
Just much easier on the body.
Still getting the nutrients.
And you can really play around with how you fast. Like you can do a broth and juice, like gap shake fast. That you
manage that. That's
liquid. There's all different ways you can do it. And then just on the weight gain again, another aspect of it is I did talk about last week in adrenal fatigue that when you get past kind of that stage 2 of adrenal fatigue and it's affecting your sex hormones, which is causing progesterone to become low. Well, that's one. Also, weight gain around the middle is with those hormone changes. So low progesterone, which can cause estrogen to become high. So we know with estrogen dominance, there's that weight gain around the middle. So that would be a big factor in that weight around the middle with the stress.
Another question, if you've finished on that subject. Is can you discuss the difference between adrenal fatigue and chronic fatigue?
So there's not necessarily a difference, and I think I kind of touched on that at the beginning of the last podcast, that I guess when I talk about adrenal fatigue, it's just not completely isolated to the adrenals. It is something that's affecting
but it's
all
just
of the body.
Phrase we use, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess they're both umbrella terms. It's like, when you have these symptoms, which we can test as well with Dutch profile to kind of definitely say, yes, stress hormones are here, sex hormones are here. We know there's an imbalance here. But, you could have chronic fatigue without any of that coming up in testing. So I guess there's probably not a big difference in that when adrenal fatigue gets to that chronic state, it would be chronic fatigue. But I guess chronic fatigue probably just opens up and covers a bigger range. So because fatigue really is an issue that affects far more than the adrenals.
Okay. I did have one more question here. Someone said they'd heard that adaptogens sometimes cause problems if you've got severe adrenal fatigue. Do you know much about that?
I'm not a herbalist, so I don't.
Okay.
So, I wouldn't.
Ask a herbalist.
Ask a herbalist. I could comment, but I don't really want to.
Okay.
Because, I think that is a really good one for a herbalist to talk about.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. I think anything, if you're at an extreme level of anything, you need probably just gradual
go through a
restoration. Like taking it easy on yourself rather than bombarding yourself with high potent stuff. I don't know, just slowly recovering
But
Yeah, definitely. And that's like with GAPS, even if you start having all the healing foods, for someone that's really unwell, that can send them into a healing crisis.
Because they start to detox too quickly.
Yeah.
Too much. Yeah. But like you need to ease yourself into anything, really.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially when you're at that kind of, if you can't move, chances of you healing quickly are quite low as well, so you just want to take it easy. And I really can't emphasize rest and sleep and turning off technology at night and not looking at blue light and getting as much sunshine as you can, and just,
I really think that's been the main things for me lately.
Yeah, natural rhythms, man. Like just, whatever the day is doing, do that. If it's sunny, be in the sun. If it's gone dark, go to sleep, rest, drink broths, be kind to yourself, that kind of stuff.
You can wear blue light blocker glasses like mine.
I have them there. I just should put them on at night.
We've got them in the store now. The
cool.
Blue Master ones, because I'd be wearing them in my videos. Everyone's like, "Where'd you get your glasses?"
Oh, that's good.
Glasses. So we've got them in the store now.
Yeah,
good idea.
What you've got them on the store? What's the store?
Microbiomestore.com.au.
Microbiome is .au.
Yeah, microbiomestore.com.au.
And you got the blue blocker glasses.
Yeah, so they should be up there now. Otherwise they'll be up in the next day or so.
I just want to see what they look like, because I've got some that don't look that cool.
Mine look really bad.
Have you seen
like
mine?
something? Yeah, yours look fine. Mine look like something from one of those $2 shops.
Life Changing Food is sold out on your website. Why is it sold out?
God, I'm ordering, Elyse.
I just started my video so you guys can see my glasses.
Oh.
Let's have a look.
Elyse.
Maybe my video is not working. That's a bit of a letdown. Well, I'll have to get more copies of the book in.
You go.
Give you a very good deal, very good price. Awesome. All right, Elyse, thank you so much. I think that's been a really great series on the adrenals and iodine and the thyroid. Just a lot of people have thank you so much for coming in again and sharing this information with us, and it gives me more things to argue with you.
Oh, great. Tell me off again.
I love how she doesn't like her business partner telling her to rest. Like, how is that even,
That's not true. I actually brag about it. Like, Fuad told me to not work today. I said to my friends this morning while we were out having coffee, they're like, what?
That's great. I'm glad you're not working.
Yeah, I went no coffee.
You're resting and taking care of yourself. Awesome. Elise, thank you so much. I'll see you on Wednesday next week.
Yes, I'm excited.
Well, what are you eating these days? I don't know what
you made me do that.
Oh, anything.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's anything you'd cook through that I wouldn't like.
Oh, awesome. Well, we'll get something happening. Are you staying in Sydney, or where are you staying?
So I'll head down to Sydney. So we're going to go visit family and visit some friends, and Mel and Chelsea that
nice.
Shop and everything.
It'll be fun.
Yeah.
Mel and Chelsea.
Right.
You heard that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you, Elyse. That was great.
Okay, pleasure, guys. Say bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Bye, Dylan.
Bye, everybody, Daddy.
It's so cute.
I think we should end the podcast right there.
I know. He'll adrenal fatigue. Be more like Dylan.
Take a selfie with you and Dylan so he can use it for the photo for the podcast, will you?
I will.
Okay.
I'll send you one now.
He's got the glasses.
Yeah, and the blueberry all over Dylan's face.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
But at least just for FYI, most people who listen to this podcast are mothers trying to get away from kids, and next time it would be a really good idea. I'm just joking. Love you. Chat to you guys later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
This has been a production of TheWellnessCouch.com. Check us out on Facebook and join in the conversation on Facebook.com/TheWellnessCouch. Subscribe to each show on iTunes and check us out on Twitter. The Wellness Couch, streaming wellness into your lives. Whilst the Wellness Couch presenter endeavored to provide accurate and helpful information to their listeners, these podcasts cannot take into account individual circumstances and are not intended to be a substitute for health and medical advice from a qualified health professional. You should always seek the advice of a qualified health professional before acting on any of the information provided by any of the Wellness Couch podcasts.